Stephen King in his own words. Bookshelf, BBC Radio 4, 11th of November 1984. Featuring Hunter Davies.
There's always been a need for fantasy, for make-believe. It's age-old. One of the first great pieces of literature, of art that we have in the English language is a horror story. It's called Beowulf. It is one of the most gruesome, revolting things imaginable. As Joe Bob Briggs, the critic at the Dallas Times-Herald, who does drive-in movie criticism, would say, heads do roll in Grendel. There's a lot of blood in Grendel.
Stephen King's influences were less literary, but set him on his course from childhood.
I can remember my mother telling me a wonderful story when I was young enough to be warped, let's put it that way. They grew up fairly poor, and once a week this fellow came who was a peddler, salesman, really a rag man, and he would swap as well as sell. And my grandfather gave them each 2 or 3 pennies to spend, and one of the things that they spent it on was gum. Now, they could have one piece of gum, and they chewed it all week long. You chew it all day long, stick it on the bedpost when you went to bed at night, and overnight it would kind of petrify and get real hard so that you had to kind of work it back to consistency the next day. Well, one night, 2 or 3 nights after the ragman had come and she'd gotten her weekly piece of gum, she put it on the bedpost and went to bed, and after she fell asleep, a moth fluttered down and got stuck in the gum. And it just kind of, froze in there as the gum hardened. Well, she got up the next morning and didn't look, one eye open, and popped the gum into her mouth and chomped down and bit the moth in half. The 2 halves began to flutter wildly inside of her mouth, and she spit it out. And I heard that story, and I thought, that's the most awful thing that I ever heard in my life. Now, I wonder if it would be possible for me to tell a story that would make people feel that way. I think that revulsion is a part of the total effect of the sort of fiction that I do. And I also think it's very wrong to suggest that revulsion doesn't have its part to play in art, because anything that we experience in life has its part to play in art. And anybody who's ever discovered, for instance, that there's a spider in bed with them, or that a bat's caught in their hair, or that sort of thing, knows what revulsion is.
And King is a great believer in going all the way when it comes to description. The ultimate horror close-up is what King describes simply as the gross out.
It's a little bit like if you were ever a kid and chewed up a mouthful of food and then hung your mouth open so that your brother or sister would go, oh, that's terrible. It's childish. There's nothing wrong with that at all. I once wrote a story called Cat from Hell, where this fellow actually swallowed a cat, and the cat clawed its way out through the guy's stomach. That's a gross out. And a lot of writers and a lot of filmmakers say, well, I steer clear of that. That's not a nice thing to do, but I love it. I love it. If I can't terrify you, if I can't horrify you, I'd be perfectly happy to gross you out.
Are there really morals in horror? Certainly Stephen King is confident that he isn't encouraging impressionable readers to carve up their grandparents. In fact, he likes to think that the space between hysterical laughter and ordinary laughter maybe isn't all that big, and venturing into the foulest cellars of the subconscious can actually be beneficial.
Generally speaking, we don't go around talking about the things that I write about, vampires and werewolves and people who are decapitated or people who are buried alive or that sort of thing. In other words, they're things that people in nice society don't talk about. And my role is very similar to the role of the comedian who makes us laugh by talking about things that we ordinarily don't talk about. And I'm always drawn back to the close similarity between what I do and that moment in that Mel Brooks film, Blazing Saddles, where the cowboys are sitting around the campfire and one of them farts, and then another one farts, and pretty soon all of these cowboys are sitting around singing and farting. And of course, farts are something that we don't talk about in polite society, so we laugh our heads off, partially out of our own sense of outraged propriety. And when you scream or when you say, oh, that's awful, it's something that I've written, you're doing the same thing.
John Dunn, BBC Radio 2.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?